Okay, great. Welcome to Facebook Live Friday, the show that wanted you far too much to ever let you go. Let's welcome our guests. She's the Bonnie to my Clyde and the Jekyll to my Hyde. She's Amanda Kemp running the camera.
Hi!
Okay. And she's seen fire and she's seen rain. Now she sees your comments and questions. She's Caitlin Williams.
Hello, everybody.
And our special guest, he's been inclined to believe they never would, the Director of Community Relations for Huntsville Utilities, Joe Gertis. So let's get right to it. Yesterday, if you watched us live, you know we had the groundbreaking for Project Liftoff, which is a power supply flexibility project being built through a partnership of Huntsville Utilities, 7 States Power Corporation, and the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, made possible in part through our long-term partnership agreement with our friends at the Tennessee Valley Authority. This project integrates solar power, battery storage, and electric vehicle charging with an education exhibit for visitors, and will be located at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. So that's the thumbnail sketch. What else can you tell us about this?
Well, it's an important opportunity for Huntsville Utilities to learn how these 3 technologies integrate. Especially important with the renewable solar piece, because renewables on their own are difficult for utilities like Huntsville Utilities or TVA because they're not reliable in terms of when the electricity is going to be available. With the storage piece, you're socking that electricity away to use whenever the demand is there. And in this application, it's perfect.
Right.
So if you want to charge your car and it's dark, there's going to be storage there at the site for you to charge your car, so you can still charge even when the sun isn't out.
Right.
It's important also to learn, for us to learn how well the integration of the 2 technologies, the storage and the solar, work, because through the flexibility agreement that you mentioned with TVA, we can learn more about how we can apply these 2 technologies to take advantage of that flexibility and serve our customers in a different way.
Right.
We have customers that are interested in solar. As I mentioned, solar's somewhat unreliable in terms of availability. Unlocking the storage piece is the most important part of making solar a more reliable, more viable piece of a generation fleet.
And these are going to be, how many, it'll be 4 electric vehicle chargers, or?
So there'll be 4 ports with room to expand. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. Of course, we expect demand for EV charging to go up over time. And so if we see, you know, either sooner or later that this site is popular for charging, then we can add additional ports. I think we can double it up to 8.
Well, and there's certainly plenty of room out there at,
yes,
at the Space and Rocket Center to do that. For those people who are watching who may not have heard of them before, what can you tell us about 7 States Power Corporation?
So 7 States is it's a corporation that's owned by the 153 local power companies within the TVA footprint. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of TVPPA. And I may be saying that wrong, so if I am, Betsy will kill me when she sees this. But it is a standalone entity, and they're sort of retooling.
Right.
What I mean by that is 7 States used to own some utility scale generation. Those assets were sold, and now they're looking for better ways to serve their members, us, and the other power companies, and offer opportunities to our customers through 7 States, more at the residential level, which is not what TVA does.
Right.
Everything TVA does is large utility scale, commercial industrial type things like Facebook, like Toyota, like Mazda Toyota. But this will be, there's an opportunity that I'm discussing with them that involve car chargers in the home. So that's an opportunity I'm very interested in, obviously, because the energy services area for residential customers runs out of our shop.
Right.
And so that's an opportunity through 7 States because they can use their buying power to provide chargers at a reduced cost.
So they can help us facilitate some of these things that are made possible by the long-term agreement with
Correct.
the TVA. The
Well,
partnership agreement.
in this case, we could do this without the
Right,
long-term
right.
agreement. But with electric vehicles, somewhere between 80 and 90% of all car charging happens at home.
Right.
Because people will use their EVs during the day, come home from whatever they've been doing, plug the car in, and go to bed.
Right.
And so don't expect that to change. So anything we can do to facilitate charging in the home is the better advantage for our customers and for us.
Right. And like you said earlier, electric vehicles have seen a significant spike in use nationwide over recent years. My question to you, Amanda, when it comes to electric vehicles, are all those extension cords, hundreds of miles of extension cords strewn across the highways and byways of this great land of ours, going to pose a tripping hazard?
Absolutely. You've got to make sure that you tape them down.
Okay, so tape them down as you're driving down the highway. Okay, but seriously, the two main things that cause people to have to hesitate when it comes to buying an electric car are lack of charging stations and range anxiety, which kind of go hand in hand. So this may, and you hear a lot of people calling for a network of charging stations. And the thing I will say to that is there are more charging stations out there than you realize.
True.
And there are apps out there to help you find them. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well,
but
the challenge, and what you're talking about is a conversation that's going on nationwide, certainly going on here in Alabama. Several entities, including TVA, have developed or identified places where charging is needed to help eliminate that range anxiety.
Right.
That is probably the last major hurdle for the market to come to this product. Product availability is also a problem, but
right.
I understand that's about to change. So what we need is not more charging in downtown areas.
right.
What the Space Center is doing is great because that's a destination. It's level 2 charging, takes a little bit longer. So you can plug your car in, go into the museum, have your day, come out and your car is charged, you can go. Of course, we don't want you to leave it plugged in the whole time you're inside.
Yeah.
But the point is, that's a slower charging product than what is needed out on the open road, which is what's called DC fast charge. DC fast charge requires that storage piece, thus
Right.
the DC, to take the charging time down to more like 20-30 minutes. So a little bit longer than filling up your gas tank, but fast enough that you can plan a trip, and if the chargers are ideally located, then maybe grab a bite to eat while your car is charging, and then you're off on the road again. So those conversations are going on all over the country. Certainly 7 states is looking at that. I know TVA is looking at it. Our friends to the south at Alabama Power are looking at it. ADECA has some funds available through the Volkswagen settlement that they're pointing at EV charging. Not exactly sure what's going to happen there yet, but I understand the RFP, the request for proposals process, is about to begin, probably after the turn of the fiscal year in October.
And I read an article earlier this week. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but there is a company that is working on electric cars that believes they have finally broken the 500-mile range barrier.
Interesting. That would be a game changer.
Yeah. So, and of course, that's still a ways to go before those vehicles are available commercially. But just like anything else, there's the 100-mile now. We're shooting for 200. Now we're shooting for 300, and so I think that's gonna, because I know in my family we recently replaced our family car, and I was seriously looking at some sort of electric. The only reason we didn't is because my in-laws still live in rural southeast Missouri, and there's just not a lot of chargers between
Right.
there and there, and so that's why we didn't go with it.
Well, the good news is for us locally, the market's not there yet. We have, depending on which numbers you look at, somewhere between 800 and 900 EV drivers. Considering that we have over 190,000 electric meters in Madison County, the demand isn't there to justify a great deal of investment, but what that also does is it gives us time to figure this out. And that's where Project Liftoff comes in, and we can look at this application and provide some opportunity down the road to meet this market when the market comes.
Our VP of engineering has an electric car.
Yes.
It's nice.
Yes,
Very
she
nice.
does. She loves it. Like many Tesla owners, she
Yeah.
is Married to her car.
It's a nice looking car. My
Yeah,
daughter said she would like one when she turned 16. I told her it wasn't happening. Before we move on to our next topic, let's see what's being said online. And for that, we go to our next segment, Comments, Questions, Caitlin. Question spelled with a CW. Caitlin, what you got for us?
Actually, so far, we do not have any questions or comments. So for all of you watching,
What did you write down there, though?
I have some questions
Oh.
that I might want to ask in a little bit.
Okay.
So this is not from online. So yeah, looking through, don't see any comments or questions.
Probably your choice of guest is not really driving
come
the
on.
questions.
So, but if y'all do have any comments or questions, please post them in the thread. I would be happy to read them out. And we have a good crowd watching, so hello to everyone, and thank y'all for joining in today.
And let's talk a little bit about Laura. The storm hit the Texas-Louisiana coast yesterday. It was a very powerful Category 4. As of this morning, I checked one of the resources I used. There were 770,000 people across 3 states without power. 530,000 of them in Louisiana, 189,000 in Texas, and 49,000 in Arkansas. And we have been asked if we plan to send crews. The storm's moving our way right now, so we're kind of in that mode now. We're going to wait and see what happens here. Hopefully we'll come through this. It has drastically weakened. It is now a tropical depression with sustained winds of 30 miles an hour, which, considering what it was when it hit, that's great for us. So right now we need to see what happens here before we move on to that stage. That number, that $770,000 person number, is actually down by 60,000 from the last time I checked it yesterday. So a lot of crews that weren't impacted by the storm have already responded, and they're making great progress. 60,000 people in less than 24 hours. That's great work, and we certainly wish them the best, because it's dangerous enough to do this job when the sun is shining. When you're doing it in the middle of a storm and immediately afterwards, it is a completely different.
Well, in this case too, with any tropical weather system, that wind complicates things a great deal, because the rain and the lightning may move away, but the wind remains.
Right.
And working around cables in the wind, very, very dangerous.
And in our case, the way it was explained to me through a webinar I sat through, we are, as it moves through our side, we're going to be on the side of the storm that actually where the winds are a little bit stronger and the rain's a little bit heavier.
Yep.
So it's always on the right side of the storm, as it were.
Correct.
And speaking of that, we got new data from the National Weather Service this morning. The greatest threat for severe weather in our area is from 1 p.m. this afternoon to 1 a.m. Saturday morning. Those threats include prolonged heavy rain that can lead to flooding, storms with damaging winds, and possible tornadoes. And because the ground is going to be so saturated, we have a greater risk of trees falling, even if the winds aren't particularly severe. And that has been a big problem in Louisiana, where yesterday they reported 8 deaths, all caused by trees falling on houses.
Wow.
So definitely keep an eye on the weather. If you have a NOAA weather radio, turn it on. Tune into local media, keep track of it. They're doing a great job keeping everybody up to date on that. If you have a power outage or you see a downed power line, you know the number to call, 256-53-LIGHT, which comes out to 256-535-4448. We do have a lot of people who will just send us a message on social media, which that's not going to start the process.
Don't do that.
You have to call our dispatch people. They are the ones who are keeping track of all this, and they are not monitoring these pages.
Let me explain that too for
Yeah.
the folks that are watching. When you call that outage in, it goes into a ticketing system. That's very important. We can't do that for you from our social media outlets, because you include your address and things associated with your location that we can't do on social media. So please call that outage in. Don't assume that we know. And if you see damaged equipment, lines on the ground, stay away from those lines. Don't try to get out there and cut tree limbs when you don't know whether or not those lines are dead. They could be live, and that is high voltage, and it could kill you. So please stay away from those lines.
And very important to remember, especially in a situation like this with all the rain, ordinarily, if a line falls on dry ground, it's going to energize the ground for a significant distance. On wet ground, it's going to go even further.
Water is a very
Yes.
good conductor.
So,
Very good.
you know, it reminds me of when I was in the military, and they would say during the war games exercises, okay, if we do an unexploded ordnance drill, you need to stay 200 feet away. I said, I'm staying like 2,000 feet away. You know, it's not like, okay, you can get this close. No, you can't get far enough away. So
Right.
try and get far enough away. But call us immediately if you see a downed line, because we need to know about that.
Well, and since we're talking about outages too, it's a good time, given the weather that's approaching. And there will probably be, presumably, lots of lightning. Lightning does damage to the system that may not reveal itself until sometime later. That's what we saw earlier this week. What happened on Monday
Right.
and Sunday are a piece of equipment called a lightning arrestor failed. That means that lightning struck very near that arrestor, and it didn't fail when the lightning hit, but it was damaged, and it takes a high load event to reveal that damage, oftentimes in the form of an outage. We do our best to keep that maintenance up and detect those problems beforehand, but when you're talking about literally thousands of miles of cable and thousands of utility poles and a large number of substations, that there's a lot of lightning arresters on all that equipment. And so while I say we do our best to keep an eye on all that thing, it's virtually not humanly possible to do so. So we have a storm coming through. Presumably lots of lightning will be with that storm, and when your power goes out on a warm, sunny day, if it's not wildlife or a car accident, probably it's equipment that was previously damaged that is now failing. It happens.
And speaking of lightning, it's now time for what we call the lightning round. But before we go to the lightning round, I noticed you have written a couple more things down there, Caitlin.
I have. We have gotten a few comments. So from Deb, she said, good guess and good info too. Deb is one of our co-workers. So hello, Deb.
We say good viewers.
That we do. And she also said that teachers are going to love the teaching opportunity, which we might want to go into that a little bit more about how the educational piece goes along with Project Liftoff.
Yeah, it's
Certainly.
Liftoff.
Yeah, okay, so back to Project Liftoff. This is also an exhibit for the Space and Rocket Center. So it will teach museum goers about the three technologies, how they're being integrated, and what the benefits are. So solar is clean energy. The storage, as I explained before, complements the solar by making it more reliable. And then, of course, an electric vehicle is a no-emission vehicle. So all very good in terms of things that people are worried about environmentally. And so this exhibit will be, you know, until they change it, it'll be in place for quite a long time. And not just a teaching piece for the people going through the museum, but certainly for us as well, getting to test this technology and learn what we can do with it.
Which Haley also said that she is excited to take her kids to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center to see the project. So thank you, Haley. We are grateful that you're excited to take your kids.
And it should be ready in just about a month. I mean,
The ribbon
the
cutting
goal is October 1st, I think.
Planned for October 1 in conjunction with a meeting that's happening at the Space Center. And so, you know, weather doesn't help when we have bad weather, but it's a pretty complicated build that they look to accomplish in a short period of time, and by October 1 it should be ready for business.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the one thing about the Space and Rocket Center that I want to point out, I've lived here for about 10, 11 years now, and I never get tired of driving down 565 and seeing the Saturn V. I never get, to this day, I don't get tired of it. People come to visit us and driving them past there, I'm like, okay, don't talk, you got to see this. It's great.
Well, I've lived in Huntsville virtually my entire life, and it's nice to be reminded how excited people get about the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, because it's a fixture for me.
Yeah,
It's always been here. I've been to the museum many times, many events there, and so to know that the reach that it has across the country, really, and across the world, it's nice to be reminded of that, and it's right here in our hometown.
And I've always thought it would be cool if they used the Saturn V as like, I don't know the exact technical term, but like a giant sundial.
Oh.
Of course, I guess the numbers would be like over in Calhoun's parking
They'd
lot.
have to build
but,
a
I mean,
giant Stonehenge
It
around
would be
it.
huge, but I've always thought that would be cool. But anyway, let's do the lightning round. Our first story is from Queensland, Australia. A woman who could not get her toilet to flush lifted off the lid to the tank on the back. We've heard about the snakes coming up through the... She lifts up the tank on the back and she finds 4 large tree snakes in the tank, one of which was over 3 feet long. Caitlin, my question for you. Since you'll soon be moving into your new home, are you worried about finding snakes in the toilet? And if you weren't before, are you now since I've mentioned it?
That's a lot to process.
There will now be a snake inspection. I see it.
Maybe once a month I might check, but I feel pretty confident that I'm not going to have that issue with my house.
I'm sure this lady in Queensland, Australia was quite surprised too.
Okay, but Australia has some crazy wildlife.
Oh,
let's be
everything in
honest.
Australia can kill you. I mean, even koalas, I think, could probably. If a koala got a chance,
But they're so cute.
And the leaves they eat are highly poisonous
yeah.
to humans.
So.
Interesting. That I did not know.
Our second story is from South Africa, where a couple broke the Guinness World Record for continuous karaoke by singing nonstop for 35 hours. The previous record was 25 hours. They did it as part of a fundraiser. My question for everyone on the panel, what is your go-to karaoke song? Amanda?
I don't sing.
Okay. Moving on.
Well, I often do Wanted by Bon Jovi.
I've heard you do one of
Yeah.
them.
So before I moved from Auburn, my friends and I, we would go to karaoke nights on Wednesday at Moe's Barbecue. So my friends and I, we love karaoke.
Don't
We
say
love to
Love
sing.
Shack. Don't say Love Shack.
Oh, no,
Don't
no,
say Love
no.
Shack.
Inner Sandman.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah. One of my good friends and I, we love doing Inner Sandman. And then Lose Yourself by Eminem.
I have sung karaoke one time my entire life. You were there.
Yeah. Bob
And
Dylan. It was
I
really
sang Like a
great.
Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan.
Todd
And a Bob
does-
Dylan impression.
Todd does a solid Bob Dylan.
It wasn't just me singing. I was singing like Bob Dylan.
It was good, and I was having such a good time watching him, and I forgot to shoot it on video.
Yeah.
But-
And I didn't realize how long that song was.
Oh, yeah.
I was up there. I was like, "There's another verse to this." I've
And
heard,
you can
I've heard the
only
song all
hear
my
so
life.
much of this
Yeah,
before you get
yeah.
tired of hearing it.
I think the viewers might want you to give them
Nah,
a
they
little
don't.
additional.
Well, we haven't cleared that song. So, of course, I always like to quiz everybody on the panel about historical events that happened on the day of our show. So I wonder how many of you know what famous event happened on this day, and if any of you folks at home want to take a guess at this famous historical event that happened today in 1963. 1963. And this time I made sure to not tell Amanda first, because last week I did actually mention it and she knew the answer.
I was in here when you looked it up yesterday, so I
Yes.
will keep silent.
Oh, well, I'm not going to guess. I have a few guesses, so just let us off the hook.
The March on Washington.
Okay.
The I Have a Dream speech.
I thought it was
1963.
something civil rights oriented because August is a very
Right.
active month for historical civil rights events.
Right. And also on this day in 1996, Charles and Diana got divorced.
Oh, wow.
And here's the freaky part, 1 year and 3 days later, Diana was killed in a car crash.
Goodness.
That was awful.
That's odd. And I remember where I was when I heard about Princess Diana. I was in St. Peters, Missouri, at my then girlfriend's house.
So to bring it all full circle, I was at home downstairs watching a weather report.
Huh. Gotta love the weather.
Yeah, well, gotta love it, but we're stuck with it whether we love it. or not.
Let's mention a couple of important birthdays. First up, Mr. Morris Ankrum, born on this day in 1897, making him how old? Anyone?
You're asking me to do math. And
Dead.
113?
123. Yeah. He was an attorney and economics professor before he took up acting, and then he had a film career that lasted 32 years, in which he appeared in 276 films and TV shows, including North of the Rio Grande, Hills of Old Wyoming, Pirates on Horseback. I gotta watch that now. Three Men from Texas, Borderland, and the Hopalong Cassidy films. And towards the end of his career, he had a recurring role as the judge on Perry Mason with Raymond Burr.
So we would probably
Ironsides.
recognize his face if we saw a picture.
And of course, another birthday today, Frederick Muck.
No doubt.
Our own Fritz Muck, our water operations
Happy
manager.
birthday, Fritz.
He has a birthday today. He does not have any film or movie credits on IMDb.
We can take care of that.
But there is a Frederick Murdoch. And his only credit is bald villain number 6 in the League of Steam. So
Interesting.
but it's not his birthday. So before we wrap this up, does anybody have anything to add?
I told you I don't do math.
Okay. Amanda, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Caitlin?
I think I'm good.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up by acknowledging 2 more significant events. Joe Ruby, co-creator of Scooby-Doo, passed away this week. If you love cartoons like I do, I love cartoons.
That's Russell.
Co-creator, he was 87 years old. And for all you sports fans out there, Lute Olson.
Who?
Lute Olson, Hall of Fame college basketball coach
Oh,
of
well,
the Arizona Wildcats, passed away at 85 last night. So, hate to hear that.
Condolences.
Absolutely.
Condolences all around. So, until next week, we thank you for watching. I'm Todd for Amanda, Joe, and Caitlin, thanking you for watching and reminding you that you can't spell utilities without you.
How long was that?